Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Eight security personnel have been killed in an insider attack at a police checkpoint in Afghanistan's southern Helmand province. Officials said a Taliban infiltrator opened fire on the policeman inside the checkpost in Lashkargah district of the Helmand. Meanwhile, police said clashes with the Taliban fighters in the same district inflicted casualties on both sides. In China, a gas pipe explosion at a residential community has killed 12 people and injured nearly 140 in Hubei province. Local media reported the explosion caused a food market building to collapse. The cause of the explosion is being investigated. In the United Kingdom, G7 leaders have agreed to increase their climate finance contributions to meet an overdue spending pledge of $100 billion a year. The amount will be used to help poor countries cut carbon emissions and cope with global warming. The joint communiqué also called on other developed countries to join the effort. Israel's parliament is set to vote on a new unity government that may end Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's 12-year rule. However, an unprecedented coalition of parties has a razor-thin majority of one seat to form the government. Right-wing nationalist Naftali Bennett is poised to become the prime minister in a power-sharing deal with a centralist leader, Yair Lapid. India has registered more than 3,300 deaths from COVID-19 with over 80,000 infections overnight. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 56 more people died and over 1,200 tested positive in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed nearly 3.8 million lives while infecting over 175 million people so far. For more news in detail, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. 8 security personnel have been killed in an insider attack at a police checkpoint in Afghanistan's southern Helmand province. Officials said a Taliban infiltrator opened fire on the policeman inside the checkpost in the Lashkargah district of Helmand. A spokesperson for Helmand police confirmed the incident but didn't provide any details. He said the fire exchange between the police and the Taliban inflicted casualties on both sides. The Taliban have claimed responsibility for the attack. Violence in Afghanistan has increased in recent days as foreign troops withdraw. At least 12 people have died in a gas pipeline explosion in the central Chinese city of Xi'an in the Hubei province. State media said the explosion caused the food market building to collapse. It said that nearly 140 others are injured. It added that a total of 150 people have been evacuated from the city following the deadly explosion. The government officials said the rescue efforts are underway and the cause of the explosion is being investigated. At least 19 people have been killed and dozens others wounded in 2 separate attacks in the northern Syrian town of Afrin. Authorities say the first attack struck a residential area while the second hit a hospital's emergency department. They said the victims include patients, doctors, and other medical staff at Afrin's Al-Shifa hospital. Turkey has accused the PKK militants of carrying out the missile attacks. Ankara said the missiles were fired from the Tel Rifat area controlled by the Syrian government. Meanwhile, Syrian state media has also reported multiple artillery and missile attacks in a town in Idlib province. Israel's parliament is set to vote on a new unity government that may end Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's 12-year rule. However, an unprecedented coalition of parties has a razor-thin majority of one seat to form the government. Right-wing nationalist Naftali Bennett is poised to become prime minister in a power-sharing deal with centrist leader Yair Lapid. Lapid will serve as the second prime minister under the 2-year rotation deal. Netanyahu has vowed to overthrow the government very quickly, calling it a dangerous coalition of fraud. The tough approval of the government will end more than 2 years of political paralysis in Israel, in which 3 election results ended in a stalemate. Israeli forces have arrested 3 Palestinian children from the Ida refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. Palestine media said the children aged 14 to 15 were detained while playing football. They said the occupation forces also arrested 3 other young Palestinians in occupied East Jerusalem. They also physically assaulted and wounded Palestinian workers near a military checkpost. This comes a day after a Palestinian woman was martyred by the occupying Israeli forces. Meanwhile, hundreds of pro-Palestine protesters gathered in London to call for an end to the Israeli occupation. Iran says the talks to revive the 2015 nuclear deal can drag on as there are still many technicalities that need to be resolved. Iran's top negotiator Abbas Araghchi made the remarks after the conclusion of the first session of the latest talks in Vienna. Araghchi said he is not sure that a deal could be finalized this week. He said the complexities arise because the return of the U.S. to the deal involves a number of legal and political issues. Russian envoy Mikhail Ulyanov also said that a deal may not be reached before Iran's June 18th election. Meanwhile, Chinese envoy Wang Qun called the United States to move decisively to complete a thorough lifting of sanctions. The European Union said negotiations were intense, while Germany called for flexibility in stances and rapid progress. In the United Kingdom, G7 leaders have agreed to increase their climate finance contributions to meet an overdue spending pledge of $100 billion a year. The amount will be used to help poor countries cut carbon emissions and cope with global warming. The joint communique also called on other developed countries to join the effort. Speaking at the summit, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said protecting the planet is the most important thing the G7 leaders can do for the people. In his address, UK environmentalist David Attenborough said tackling climate change is now as much a political challenge as it was a scientific one. The leaders also agreed to provide 1 billion doses of coronavirus vaccines to poor countries over the next year. China says that it has hit back against the G7 statements against Beijing, saying the days of small groups of countries ruling the world are long gone. This comes after the world's 7 richest democracies sought a unified position to counter China at the ongoing summit. The Chinese embassy in London said Beijing believes that all countries are equal and world affairs should be handled through consultation by all. It said all countries must abide by the principles of the UN Charter and uphold its central role. The embassy called on the G7 to undertake concrete steps to overcome global challenges like the pandemic, climate change, and global economic recovery. Russia wishes to establish a dialogue with the United States and restore personal contact through direct dialogue. In an interview, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he wants to create a functioning cooperation mechanism in areas of mutual interest. Putin said he sees the meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden as an opportunity for better bilateral ties. Biden will meet Putin on the 16th of June in Geneva amid strained bilateral relations on a wide array of issues. Moreover, Britain's foreign ministry has also expressed hope to improve ties with Russia. However, Foreign Minister Dominic Raab said London will toughly respond to any hostile actions from Moscow. India has registered more than 3,300 deaths from COVID-19 with over 80,000 infections overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed nearly 3.8 million lives while infecting over 175 million people so far. More in this report.
The U.S. COVID-19 caseload has surpassed 33 million, while its death toll is nearing 600,000. Over in Brazil, more than 2,200 people died from the COVID-19, and over 85,000 tested positive in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro was fined $100 for failing to wear a face mask and provoking huge crowds at a rally. In Russian capital of Moscow, the mayor has effectively declared a public holiday for all of next week to combat a surge in COVID-19 cases. The rising infections have prompted social and economic woes in the city.
The latest news worries me a lot. more from a social and economic point of view. I am a mother of 2 children, so it scares me a lot. I try to protect myself with a healthy lifestyle and by doing sports, but they are banning sports and running now for whatever reason. I don't think they should ban running. You are in the open air and can keep distance from the other runners. So what is the point of banning it?
Government advisors in the UK are calling for a delay in lifting remaining restrictions after a week of over 7,000 new cases being recorded daily. As Malaysia faces a serious surge of COVID-19 infections, it is accelerating the vaccination campaign by procuring more supplies.
I think the government is doing a great job by doing mass vaccination programs, and we are happy to be a part of it. Every day, we have 120 staffs managing it. We have doctors in the consultation area, we have doctors in the injection area, and we have doctors in the emergency area as well.
A study in Australia has warned that vaccine hesitancy and the increased infectiousness of new variants may jeopardize prospects of herd immunity. Meanwhile, hospitals in the Democratic Republic of Congo's capital, Kinshasa, are overwhelmed by a rise in COVID-19 infections.
Pakistan has recorded 56 new deaths from COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. The government has administered more than 10.7 million doses of the vaccine so far. The health ministry says the country's death toll has risen to 21,689. The nationwide caseload has topped 941,000 with over 1,200 new infections overnight. More than 877,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. The number of active cases in the country is a little over 42,000. Over 2,600 of them are intensive care. Pakistan has called on the world to resolve the combat of HIV/AIDS by 2030 in line with the UN Sustainable Goals. Special Assistant to Prime Minister on Health Faisal Sultan made the remarks in an address to the UN General Assembly's meeting on AIDS. He said to achieve tangible outcomes, nations must learn from each other's experiences regarding the adaptation of strategies. He said the world must assess the setbacks faced by the global struggle against AIDS due to the COVID-19 pandemic. He said Pakistan continues to make vigorous efforts to battle the HIV.
Mr. President, goal number 3 of SDGs, health and well-being for all, and its sub-goals 3.3, relating to fighting communicable diseases, and 3.8, relating to achieving universal health coverage, respectively remain a high priority for our national agenda. Pakistan continues to make vigorous efforts to combat HIV/AIDS and has made significant progress in this regard. However, the COVID-19 pandemic posed a significant challenge to these efforts.
The United Kingdom says it wishes to ease tensions with the European Union over the Northern Ireland Protocol. The protocol is a post-Brexit trade arrangement and remains a point of conflict between the UK and EU. In an interview, Britain's Foreign Minister Dominic Raab said London wants a flexible and pragmatic approach from the EU over the protocol. Raab said an uneven adoption of the protocol would undermine the Good Friday Agreement. Citing the EU's threat, Raab said the bloc has to realize that Northern Ireland is essentially a province of Britain. The United States and South Korea have reaffirmed their resolve to work closely for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met Korean Foreign Minister Chung Eui-yong on the sidelines of the G7 summit. In a statement, the State Department termed the bilateral alliance a linchpin of peace, security, and prosperity in the region. It said the two leaders agreed to closely cooperate to encourage North Korea's return to dialogue. They stressed the importance of multilateral cooperation to address other regional issues, including Myanmar's return to democracy. Meanwhile, Korean Foreign Ministry said both sides also agreed to boost cooperation on vaccine distribution. The 4 members of a Pakistani origin family who were killed in a terrorist attack in Canada have been laid to rest. Several hundred mourners joined the public funeral, including a large number of local Muslim community. The 4 coffins draped in Canadian flags were rolled into the compound of the Islamic Centre of Southwest Ontario. The hour-long ceremony ended with prayers and condolences offered by religious and community leaders. The funeral procession later proceeded for a private burial. Earlier, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi held a phone call with the victims' families and assured them of Islamabad's full support. Qureshi expressed his and Prime Minister Imran Khan's condolences, adding the entire nation is dismayed by the tragic incident. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Germany says its discussions with the United States over the Russian gas pipeline, the Nord Stream 2, were on the right track. German Chancellor Angela Merkel made the remarks after meeting U.S. President Joe Biden on the sidelines of the G7 summit. Merkel said it was existential and indispensable to keep Ukraine involved in the gas transit from Russia to Europe. However, Merkel said the main focus of her conversation with Biden was about his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Russia's Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline to Europe is a major sticking point between both the allies. At least 9 people have been killed in an explosion in a coal mine in Colombia's central department of Boyacá. A total of 12 miners were trapped in the Santa Ynez mines in the municipality of Socha following the explosion. Authorities attributed the explosion to a bag of methane found underground during the rescue operation. They added 3 miners were rescued alive, while the bodies of the deceased have been recovered.
There were 2 colleagues clinging to a hose, the compressed air hose, which carries clean air, and they had the intelligence, or God enlightened them, so that they would break it and survive and endure so that we could get those 2 colleagues out.
Thousands of people rallied across France in the Liberty March against the attack on freedom by far-right political groups. The police and the Interior Ministry said 37,000 people took part in the protests nationwide, including 9,000 in Paris. However, organizers claimed 70,000 people participated in Paris and over 150,000 across the country. Political groups from the left, human rights groups, workers and student unions were part of the march. The protesters expressed grave concern and alarm over the rising influence of the far right in French politics, led by Marine Le Pen.
In France, the ideas of the far right are spreading more and more throughout the political spectrum and even the media. At some point, one needs to say stop. Stop to the laws by the government, which are restricting our freedoms. Stop to the excessive attention to the ideas of the far right, and which in fact transforms into violence.
Meanwhile, surveys before the regional election show President Macron's biggest challenger, Marine Le Pen, leading in major areas. And moving on, in 2021, Westminster Dog Show has kicked off at the Lyndhurst Estate in Tarrytown, New York. Over 200 breeds and 2,500 dogs are featuring in the show. Details in this report.
The annual Westminster Dog Show is the second oldest continuous sporting event in the U.S. after the Kentucky Derby. Dogs for this year's competition have come from 50 states and Puerto Rico, as well as 10 other countries.
So this is Natty and Tilly Pugdashian, and they're known for their fashion on Instagram, and worldwide people know them for the big fashion statements they make. So we're here we showed and we're having fun, and now we're here to just kick off our shoes and enjoy the rest of it.
The all-breed show has been held in New York's Madison Square Garden every year since 1877, but it was relocated this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Her name is Maya, and she is going to be 2 next month, so she's pretty young, but she's a Bichon Frise. This is my first Westminster, and she's my first bred by Bichon. So she's really fun, and she loves to show. She's a really good girl.
Due to New York State COVID-19 restrictions, Westminster's show and surrounding events are not open to spectators.
Major Gulf stocks market are trading cautiously as the region's investors monitor prospects of increasing global oil demand. Saudi Arabia's stocks led the gains, adding close to 0.5%, while bourses in Qatar edged up fractionally. Stocks in Abu Dhabi edged low. Dubai stocks traded flat as gains in property shares were offset by declines in financial stocks. And in cricket, New Zealand beat England by 8 wickets in the second and final test at Edgbaston as they sealed a 1-0 series win with a day to spare. This is their first Test series victory in England since 1999. The visitors chased down the target of only 42 runs for the losses of 2 wickets after England were bowled out for 122 in the second innings. Matt Henry was declared man of the match for taking 6 wickets. And in cricket, Islamabad United are batting against Lahore Qalandars after winning the toss in the 20th match of the Pakistan Super League in Abu Dhabi. Qalandars are currently leading the points table, followed by United. Earlier, Peshawar Zalmi climbed to the 3rd spot after they beat Quetta Gladiators by 61 runs. Multan Sultans will play Peshawar Zalmi later today. In the French Open, Barbora Krejcikova has become the first player to win both the women's singles and doubles titles since French woman Mary Pierce completed the feat in 2000. She completed the feat when she lifted the women's doubles trophy with Katrina Siniakova, beating Iga Swiatek and Bethany Matek-Sands in straight sets. The pair had won the 2019 Wimbledon doubles title. Krejcikova is expected to climb to 15th spot in the rankings following her performance in the Grand Slam. And in football, Romelu Lukaku's brace has led Belgium to a dominant 3-0 win over the host Russia in their Euro 2020 opener. The win assessed Belgium's status as one of the favorites for the European Championship. While number 1, Belgium were really in trouble against Russia, who struggled to impose themselves. Lukaku fired the Red Devils ahead in the 10th minute, followed by Thomas Meunier netting their second in the 34th. Russia applied some pressure after the interval, but Lukaku wrapped up Belgium's win with his second. Roberto Martinez, Belgium are level 3 on the points table with Finland, but top Group B on goal difference. In other fixtures, Finland beat Denmark 1-0, while Wales and Switzerland ended with a 1-1 draw. In the National Basketball Association, Los Angeles Clippers beat the Utah Jazz 132-106 at home in Game 3 of their Western Conference semifinals. The win cuts the Clippers' deficit to 2-1 in the best-of-7 series. Los Angeles made 19 of 36 from 3-point range, while shooting 56.2% overall. Kawhi Leonard hooped 34 points for the hosts, while Paul George added 31. Donovan Mitchell scored 30 points for top-seeded Utah, but missed the final 7 minutes after injuring his right ankle. Game 4 of the series will also be played in Los Angeles on Monday. In mixed martial arts, Israel Adesanya has successfully defended his middleweight title for the 3rd time after beating Marvin Vettori in UFC 263. He claimed a unanimous decision victory with a score of 50-45 by all the 3 scorecards. Adesanya relied on the time and accuracy of the counter strikes to counter Vettori's forward pressure with relative ease in their rematch. In the night's co-main event, Brandon Moreno defeated Davison Figueiredo to claim the flyweight title with a 3rd round of submission. Meanwhile, Leon Edwards survived a last gasp onslaught by Nate Diaz to claim a decision victory in a special 5-round waterweight bout. In the lightweight heavyweight category, Paul Craig claimed a technical knockout finish of fellow contender Jamal Hill. In the cliff diving World Series has marked its return to competition in France after a 21-month hiatus. The opener for the series' 12th season took place at Cap Dramont Nature Preserve near the town of Saint Raphael on the French Riviera. The competition saw 12 men and 12 women compete from platforms as high as 27 meters. Romanian wildcard Catalin Preda emerged as the surprise winner following his spectacular dive. Eight-time defending men's champion Gary Hunt finished in second place. In the women's contest, Australian Rihanna Ifland put herself on track for a fifth consecutive title. She dominated Canadians Molly Carson and Jessica McCauley. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.